So now my curtains are there and everything is quite modeled. I'm now moving on to the final touches. Now I want to create a ramp, so I'll pull out a slab the same thickness as my garage slab, and then I'll change the material because it's going to be the same material as the driveway. Then I can't adjust that, so I change it to a morph, uh, and quickly make a quick ramp because I don't need the ramp tool to, because this is too small a thing. The ramp tool is going to require a lot of editing. So if I just create a slab, pull the end nodes down to meet the top end nodes to meet the lower end nodes, I've created a simple slab. And you just copy paste it all over the place, and then you've arrayed everything, and there you have it. Just make sure to add a little bit of color to your curtains and some of the units, because not all curtains are going to look the same, because when you're going to start editing this in a visualization software, you're going to be having issues when everything just looks the same. Someone is going to quickly pick that up and things are going to be looking a bit off. Now picking up the rail tool, I'm going to start editing it to sort of create the balustrading I want. So from ArchiCAD 20, I think they gave you a separate rail tool. If you had used older versions, the staircase came with its own rail, and the rail tool that always existed was difficult to edit. So I started using ArchiCAD in ArchiCAD 12. Now I'm up to 23, and it's quite an interesting software. Of course, I'm trying to build my knowledge on Revit to be an all-beam individual, and wherever opportunities lay themselves, I always want to be relevant. You always want to be relevant because I'm also working out in parametric softwares to make sure that as future generations, because the next generation in terms of architecture software is really parametric, because parametric really works well with AI. It's algorithms. So that's the future. You want to be relevant ahead of time. So now each parts of your railing in this railing tool have been set aside for you to edit the spacing, the frame, the type of profile. Everything has been given out to you to edit. So I'm editing mine to be the way I want it. So now you sort of have the rail the way I want it. I like the corners. The corners are frameless, and it creates the quiet of interesting floating elegance you'd want at the top. So that's definitely what I wanted. I wanted a metal channel at the bottom, a metal channel at the top, and even the divisions within the base front frame of the facade to be metallic. When you look at it in a plain black and white look, it looks good. It looks fine with me. The proportions work well. The line work, everything is communicating. It's repeating itself in different scales, from the garage door to the walls to the larger piece of which forms the module, the unit, and even the glazing system. So there's a repeating language of rectangularism, if you'd want to call it that. The only thing that sort of strikes out is the narrowness of the clear story glazing by the garage, but everything generally repeats itself, and this is what I wanted: minimalism, absolute modularity, rectangularism, and a character being given. Now, moving on, you want to make sure your site is modeled. Of course, some of those things, if you have time in visualizing, you can always go edit them in your visualizing software. But now I put in the driveway, and now I'm putting in the lawn parts or the landscape part, which is this part I had highlighted. Now, between the building and the landscape part, there's a gap. You want to make sure that that's closed off. There's this one thing I always did, even after doing this now. There's this one thing I always had, where you have the driveway and the lawn sort of having no separate division, like curbing. So this time around, I wanted to create curbing. So, and as you're doing this, you want to make sure that your garage door is partially open to just create that sort of realistic feel as you go on to editing. Now, you have your site, it's modeled. Now I want to create curbing. I don't do this a lot, but I'm just gonna teach you how to do it very quickly. Just use your complex profile. First, draw a simple box which will create you'll create your profile from. Make sure you understand the dimensions. The other important thing as a technologist, you always need to know different things, dimensions, up to the smallest thing, up to basic nails, the material, what the stuff is made of. Have a basic idea of these things are manufactured, and have a basic idea of the dimensions, so that you don't always have to be looking for a catalog every time or looking for something like that. You want to use your head a lot of the times and understand how these things are pieced together and how generally they would look, so that you don't waste a lot of time, because trying to look for things and trying to reference things can take quite a lot of time. So I wanted to create a simple curb or curbing, the one which is very wide width and is slanting towards the edge. I'm forgetting the name, but I know the profile and I know how it's going to work. So you want to quickly model that up here by line work. You trim that, trim the unneeded, the unnecessary parts, and then now you're going to have to chamfer this, because even if it's sharp in reality, the thing is when you're rendering, sharp edges don't work well. So you just want to have a nice rounded chamfered edge. So just want to make sure even your proportions in chamfering work quite well. So I wanted a bit of a big rounded edge there, 75. So I think 75 is fine there. Then now you want to round off the other part as well, so that 25 is quite fine. It's beautiful. This one I just wanted a very small chamfer there, because a straight edge doesn't always quite work well. So I think 15 might work, or 10 something less, or even up to 5. 10 seems fair enough, because you don't want a very sharp edge. So now you use the fill tool, you put in the fill, and then now you're going to use the complex profile to create your new curb or curbing. And then you open options, open the complex profile, create a new profile. After you've created a new profile, give it a name. In this case, it's a curb or curbing. And then you say okay. Then it's going to open up a new page. Complex profiling, working in a complex profile has become very interesting in the newer versions of ArchiCAD. Then you now paste that fill of the complex profile. Make sure your corner, which you'll be using to draw from, is by the origin, the X, the red X there, because you don't want it to be offset. When you're drawing a line, it shouldn't be offset from the main profile you're doing, unless if it's done on purpose. So now I'm going to store that as a wall, because you can store it as a wall or any of the other things, but I'm going to store it as a wall because that's what I want. Delete that on the floor plan. We don't need it anymore. So that's there. So you store it as a curb. You open the dialog for the walls. Then in the dialog of the walls, you open the wall type. When you open the wall type, you look for complex profile, and then you look for your profile. There it is. It's a curb. Then you say okay. Make sure you've matched all the material of your profile, the wall or material. And now I can quickly, by clicking spacebar, it's going to highlight the whole the whole driveway. Then once off, it creates one smooth continuous curb. But then the problem is, in reality, the curb is not one smooth continuous thing. It is like maybe a grouting edge fill or a bonding section in it. So there's those divisions. That's what you see in reality. So, but right now I just want to see if the straight one would I'll be able to get my illusion to work with the straight one. But I don't think it's gonna work, so I'll be forced to start creating those divisions. I'll show you. It's not gonna be a complex thing. I'll show you in a second. So it's too straight, it's too perfect, it's not real. So definitely I'm gonna have to create divisions here. So in a second I'll be creating the divisions. So you want to create one, the width of one, and be able to use the profiling in the floor plan of your slab, of your driveway, to sort of create multiple copies. So I put in a dimension and I place it where I want it as a single module. And then the next thing you just need to think about is placement. The distance between the two, where your bonding is going to be, or your grout filling. Just make sure your first one is exactly in position in terms of the height or the depth. It has to be exactly where you want every one of them to be. So now I'm pulling it down to make sure it's exactly where it's supposed to be, sending it a little bit lower than the landscaping or the driveway. Now it doesn't appear in the floor plan where I want to see it, and it's not even appearing in the basement, meaning it's caught in no man's land. But you can always adjust that. It's appearing in 3D. You go to the dialog, you open the floor plan and section. The home story is fine, so it's saying relevant stories. You say home story only. Now, even if after doing that, if it doesn't appear, you can still adjust that. We go check first. It's not appearing, so we're going to quickly fix that to make sure it appears. Go to the dialog, go to the floor plan and section area, make sure you say outlines only. Now it's going to appear as a simple white object. So there it is. Fair and fine. We don't want it to appear like a hedged solid wall. So now Control U for create multiple copies. Make sure the path is able to be chosen. So you pick the path, highlight the path to where you want to go, make sure there's the offset, the space between the two. You don't need to fill anything there. The shadow gap is going to be enough when you visualize for the person to just create an illusion in their mind and say the crowd feeling is there or something like that, or just the bonding part is there. So of course now we're cutting throughout our ramp. We're going to remove that. We're going to have to manually remove that. It's still fine. Remember, when you finish this off, you're going to have to group all of these things to do. You can quickly do that by Alt G. Then everything is grouped. So in case you made a mistake and you want to delete all of them, you can just click one of them, Alt G again, and you select the whole thing at once, and then you delete it. But so far so good. I'm fine with what we have. Of course, we're going to have issues here. We're going to have to manually edit some of them by the rounded edges, the rounded corners for the driveways. But that's still fine. We'll sort that out. Now we're just left with removing the ones we don't want. Quickly take this out. We don't need those. Now we'll need that. Remember, it's a wall and it has a drawing line right there, the blue line, which you can quickly edit to just make sure it can be curved inwards, to make sure it works with the curve of the curb there. So first round it off to make sure it follows the profile. Then now you can offset it, like the circular offset, and you're generally done. And you can just keep copying this to all of these rounded edges where they have the similar radiuses and diameters.